All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott, attempting to go on and give you some jQuery. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly grab this. And if you've never gone out here before, this is a site called tutorialrepublic.com. And you'll notice they've got tutorials on a lot of different things. HTML5, CSS3, jQuery, Bootstrap. All right, and examples on each. HTML5 references, CSS references, etc. Well, I'm grabbing their jQuery. First, there's a tutorial here, all right, and that tutorial has a boatload of examples, and they're right here. There must be somewhere in the vicinity of 50 examples. I'm going to go over probably about 20% of them. All right. Now, when you go through these examples are in many ways similar to W3 schools. So notice, including jQuery in a document. So it shows you the code here, and then it shows you what should happen. So this is what I want to do. Is I want to go over their examples and then explain what they are. What's nice is I'm going through examples that already work. All right. So there's the title, no biggie. There's the style sheet, no biggie. All right. But all we've got in here is a link to jQuery. And then we're not doing any jQuery in here. We just have a hello world. Okay. The good news is it didn't break anything, right? All right. So now let's display hello world using jQuery. All right. So we're saying once the document has been loaded, okay, what we want to do is create a paragraph with the text, hello world. And again, not a big thing. You know, we could change it to whatever we wanted to. All right, this isn't going to change because there's no button here to run it or anything. So, but you can come in here and download any of these scripts. This would have probably been a much better way for me to do it than the way I kind of went around last time it did. Syntax of jQuery. Again, a document ready. Here, instead of doing the paragraph, we're doing an alert. Hello world. All right, but you'll see when you look at these, they're, you know, very close to one another. Previously, when we looked at those examples, on the other examples, I should have shown you that and didn't. Notice, okay, we've got the document.ready, but if you want to, and some places write it like this. All right. I've always been told you should use the document.ready line and put all of your code in there for jQuery. All right, changing text color of elements using jQuery. What's nice is if I want to, I can grab every bit of this, copy it to the clipboard, come back into here. Let's go into my file here, which has been kind of a mishmash. All right, save this. And you can see the blue. No big thing right there. But when we're adding CSS, we want the color to be this. So if I want the color to be green, 00FF00, same exact code. All right, which didn't work because I didn't put the pound sign in. And there it is. All right. And I believe that I can put multiple things in here. So color, this, and I think it's comma separated, but we're going to find out now. Font, size. And I'm going to show you this isn't going to work. This is great. All right, 3M. This should not work, and that's a good thing. Okay, so it didn't be 3M. Why? Because when you work in jQuery and it sees the minus sign, it thinks that it's font minus size. You have to change it so it looks like this. Now, I don't know if it'll work or not. It didn't, but that's not a problem. I do want you to see this, though. I'm going to come back here. And let's see now if we get a font size that's 3 times the size it was. And it is. And you say, no, no, it wasn't. Okay, fine, we'll make it 6 times. And we'll take this and refresh. Okay, it's pretty obvious now that it's working. Now, there must be some other delimiter in there if you want to add more than one class. So I think if we go on, we're going to see what that delimiter is. All right, change the text contents of the element on a button click. This is what I was trying to do before, okay, and it wasn't working very well. So what do we have here? What did it say? It says change text contents of elements on button click using jQuery. I don't see where it's changing text elements, doing the same thing that we just did. Okay. All right. Selecting an element by ID in jQuery. You'll notice that this is very similar to the example that I showed you. In fact, let's grab it. So what do we have in here? We're saying we've got a paragraph with an ID of Mark. That's the first paragraph. How about this is the marked paragraph. This is another paragraph, etc. All right. So we're telling it for that marked paragraph, we want its background color to be yellow. Now, what I don't understand, I have 100% certainty that this is going to work, and it does. Okay? And that's great. It really is. I'm very happy that that worked. Okay? But I should be able to take my jQuery that's right here, all of this, and move it down into the bottom of my body section. And it should still work. All right? Let's change it from yellow to orange to see if indeed it does. And notice it's not working now. I don't know what the problem is. Script. Oh, how about we didn't put in our ending script tag? That might work. So let's see now if that works. And it did. Because most books will recommend that you take your jQuery and you put it at the end of your HTML file, or you put it into an external file. Let me show you that too. I think that's important at least. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and in my head section, I'm going to say script source equal jQuery.js script. All right. Now I'm going to go in and grab all of that code out of here. I'm just going to leave blank script tags. That shouldn't hurt anything. Paste this in. Whoa, hello. There it is. All right, so paste this in. I'm going to save this as jQuery.js. I know I've already got a file by that name. I'm just going to overwrite it. All right. And this should work. In fact, let's change the color again. We'll change it to pink. And once we refresh, if it comes pink, that's a great thing. It did not. This is the marked paragraph, so let's double check. Mark, CSS, background, pink. That is all just fine. There's not a problem with that. Ah, I didn't spell it jQuery. For some reason, I left the Q off of jQuery. Okay. See all my other stuff that I'm working on here. All right. Where is that? Let's let the system find it for us. There's jQuery.js. I don't want that anymore. And I want the JUIR, and I want to change that name to jQuery. All right, now let's check it out. And is it going to turn pink? No. Turn it. Open. And let's try to see if we've got it. Make sure that it's correct. There is jQuery.js. Document ready. Highlight with an ID mark. It's got mark. Make its background color pink. That all looks correct. All right, script. Source equal jQuery.js script. That should be fine. All I can think of is that has to be after. Get rid of, we don't need this, so let's get rid of that. Has to be after the actual jQuery itself. Does that fix anything? There you go. So what I've just showed you was how we can add external jQuery. And the key takeaway there was we had to add it after we added the link to jQuery, not before, which is what I had before, and that's why it didn't work. All right. So we can select things by what? All right. Again, we're telling it to find everything with a class of mark and make its background yellow. So you can see those both have a class equal mark. That's why they're both yellow. The last one does not. That's why it does not. All right. Well, what if you want to do it a different way? Okay, what do we have here? Jeff. Click sign in. Okay. Not sure what that was supposed to do, except said input type equal text. All right. So for that, what we said there was make sure for the text box. Let's try this. All right. That said type equal text. That's why. If we had changed this from, let's grab it. Let's do this. This is the way to learn. Just grab a bunch of working examples, start copying them, and make some changes. So I'm going to say instead of type equal text, type equal password. Okay? Run this. Now notice the password is in yellow. All right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can go through this stuff. All right, but it's very important that you do go through it and start taking a look at it. All right. So here we're saying what? If you've got a class, an ID of mark, any spans underneath that, you should make yellow. All right. If you've got ULLIs, the background should now be yellow. Well, there they are. If you've got ULLIs, but with an ID of mark, the background should be red. And if you've got a UL with a class of mark, the LIs in there should have a class or a background of green. Now, that's a very convoluted example, but it starts to show you just the different things that you can do. Here they're doing it again. They're playing with colors and the like. I think that's enough of that. Let's jump into some events. Run code on document ready. So as soon as the document runs, fill in a paragraph that says the DOM is now loaded and can be manipulated. Okay? It says not loaded yet, and it could be that, the only reason that would come up would be if it was taking a while for jQuery to load. Run code on a click event. You've seen this already. Click on me and I'll disappear. So how did we do that? All right, this is what we said for paragraphs. 20 pixels of padding all the way around, a font size of 20 pixels, sans serif font with a background color of khaki. And here we're saying, when the document is ready, any paragraph that you click on, this dot slide up. And what slide up does, watch it as it kind of goes up like a shade would. See that? And I just want to show you, and it might even be in the next example, but just in case. All right, first let's double check their example and make sure it works. Okay. I just want to show you one that I think is kind of neat. Instead of slide up, we've already seen these, we could have fade out. Oops. All right, and that's going to look a little bit different when we run it. That rather than sliding up, it faded out, and I showed you this before, but I'm going to show it to you again. I'm going to tell it to fade out slow, so it'll look a little different. It'll take a little more time for it to fade out. Not a lot, but a little bit. Again, you do stuff like that for effect. Okay, so let's grab this. And we'll have them fade out, then they'll fade back in again. Okay, just some of the different types of effects that you can have when you work with this stuff. All right, click event, double click would work the same. How about hover? Place your pointer on me. Notice how when we hover over it, what is that saying? When we hover, we want to add the highlight class. And when we're done, this is a callback. When we're done, remove that class. Okay? Kind of an important concept here. So let's, again, bring up the example. Let's save it, make sure it works. And I believe that if I remove this, what's right here, this should add the class highlight, but it shouldn't go away. See that? All right. The reason I showed you that is to let you know, again, this is a callback function. And what this is saying is when you're done adding the class, when that's done, run this function, which says remove it. So when you move off of it, in other words, that's what's going to happen. All right, you can do a mouse enter and a mouse leave. Works the same way, but we're using mouse enter and mouse leave. Good, bad, or indifferent, there are always a lot of different ways to do the same thing in here. All right, same type of example. Key press. All right, put something inside the text box and see the result. I put a U in there. I'll put in my name is Jeff. And it's telling me how many characters I added. Hit the space bar 3 times, you can see how it's incrementing. How about the change event? Okay, you have selected Paris. You have selected New York. You have selected London, etc. How is that being done? We're using the select change event, and then when we're finding the one that was changed, and we're giving an alert of the value of that one that changed. Focus and blur are kind of neat. So if I'm here, notice it said focus fire. When I hit tab, focus fire. Focus event, focus event. Anytime you move your mouse from one field to another, all right, that mouse, that thing loses, and that's the blur. So notice what I leave here. Blur, blur. So if I go from this field to this field, a blur event takes place here, and a focus event takes place there. Why is that important? If you want to, need to, have to, you can put code in to handle either one or both of those. One reason you might want to do that: what if the person was supposed to put an email in there and did not, and you did not want to let them go on until they added an email? Well, one way of doing that then would be to put code in here to send them back again. All right. Some effects, I've shown you this. Here's a hide. There's a show. So this is toggling. So here's the hide. Here's the show. So this is the code right here that is associated with that button, which says hide all paragraphs. This is the code for this button, which says show all paragraphs. Now I can click that, nothing's going to happen. Just like I can hide, I can click hide and keep clicking it and nothing will happen. More often than not, rather than doing hide and show, you'll do a toggle. So you have only one button, turn them off, turn them on, turn them off, turn them on, etc. Fade in, fade out. Again, notice that we're fading out and we're fading back in. Very similar to what I just showed you, but there probably is a fade toggle. There it is. If they're not there, show them. If they're there, have them disappear. Fade toggle. The great news is we're doing all this with one line of code. So ideally, at least, what you're starting to see is some of the power that jQuery provides for you. Okay, when you have something fade or hide, you can do it to a certain amount of opacity. Okay, see that? That is not as bright as the other one. So we're telling that one to have an opacity of 1/2, which means have it be only half as much as the other one. Okay, so that's a fade. Animation is one of the neatest things I think about jQuery. People like that in websites, although watch it because it can get a little bit disturbing almost to have too much in there. Pretty obvious what's going on there. You're telling it to animate. It says left 300, which means, for lack of better words, provide 300 pixels of blank. And that's what, in that case, that's what moves it. All right, a very simplistic example, but you start to see what you can do. Animating multiple properties. What does that mean? Well, it means that what we wanted to do was not only make it get bigger, but have the inside fade. All right, so when we clicked on it, we wanted to animate. We wanted to change its width, change its height. They were originally 100, 100. We changed them to 300, 300. We wanted a left margin to push it. We wanted a width, border width of 10, and that's what you see there. We wanted an opacity inside of 50%. Now, if this is starting to make a little bit of sense to you, that's great. All right. jQuery chaining. Here's method chaining. The idea is right here. All right, anything with a class of reset, when you click on it, you want to be able to remove the attribute. Start chaining. Okay? Now, is that big a thing? It's just that look what it did. Reset. So what is it doing here? It's getting bigger. It's moving. It's adding a border. We're telling it to do all that stuff as it goes on. All right, so you can chain together as many things as you want to or need to. Callback we've looked at. Let's look at it again. All right, the slide toggle has been completed. Well, it didn't do a slide toggle. Oh, there it is. Executing callback multiple times. So it did both. Getting and setting text contents. Key thing here, get all the paragraphs text. This is a paragraph, this is another paragraph, this is one more paragraph. Get just the first paragraph's text. Get just the last paragraph's text. So how are we doing that magic? All right. This says grab all p tags. This says grab just the first p tag. This says grab a paragraph with a class of extra, it looks like. There it is. Again, this is one of those things, and I don't mean to be too overly dramatic here, but you are limited only by your imagination. Get the paragraph contents. Get the container's contents. And notice when we use this, we said .html. I want to grab this. I'm going to grab this example. I think it's a good one. All right. So there, button 1, click, button 2, click, etc. Yeah, that's all fine. All right. So here, I'm going to change HTML. In fact, let's run it first to make sure it works. And there it is. I don't care about the other one. But let's go back and let's change it here from HTML to text. All right, so that's the change I made. Refresh and run it. Notice the difference. Text strips off any HTML. All right. Get the value of a form element. Jeff. Okay, pretty obvious. All right, so we're grabbing all that. Now remember, you can combine all this stuff. So you can grab that element, you can animate that element, you can do whatever you want to or need to do. All right, inserting content. Here we're going to insert it at the end. So we added, this is, okay. How did we do that? We used the append method. So when you click the button, it added that. If instead we want it at the beginning, notice it's a prepend instead of an append. So it goes at the start. Multiple elements at the beginning or at the end. There's the append. Insert comments. So there's multiple things that we put down there. A heading, a new paragraph, and an image. Insert HTML before and after elements. Goes to hello world. Okay. Notice we can keep doing it. All right. We don't have any kind of clear in there. So this says after it, put that right marker. Before it, put the left marker. So I can keep adding ones here. Okay. Again, you can download any of those if you want to. You can remove the contents of elements. Pretty strong stuff. There you go. We've already looked at adding and removing classes, but let's look again anyway. Add a class, you can see that. Now, this is where I had the problem before. Add multiple classes. So we want red and we want highlight. Add class. There should have been a blank between them. I showed it before and I didn't do it like this. So we want to add both the page header class. So the header should become red and it should become uppercase. And we want to add the highlight class. So it should have a yellow background. Boom. And it does. You can remove a class. So originally that had red text. When I click the button, boom. So what happened there? Okay. We told it to remove the page header class, and that removed the uppercaseness and the red. And we told it to remove the hint highlight, which was making it yellow. So uppercase, red, title case, black. Getting and setting some CSS properties, getting the value of a property. What are we doing? We're putting it into a variable. We're taking this and we're grabbing the background color and we're putting it into a variable. Then we ask for the result of that. So, RGB, we're getting the different RGB values. All right. We can work with dimensions. So we can get the width and the height. There it is. It says this is 300 by 200. If instead we want to, and in fact, let's look at that again. How did we do that? Okay. We asked it to figure out the width, to figure out the height, put each one of them into variables called div width and div height respectively, and then show it as HTML on the bottom of the page. If instead of getting the width and height, we want to set it, okay, now we made it bigger. So when we click set, we change the width to 400 and the height to 300, where originally the width was 300 and the height was 200. All right. Traversing is an important concept. So it says select the direct parent of an element. All right. I don't see any code in here where we are. Let's go on to the next example. Not sure what those are trying to show us. But we're going to go into more examples of this later. What I'm going to attempt to do is eventually when we build this website, we'll have at least three iterations. Probably in the first iteration we'll have some very simple JavaScript. I'll try in the second iteration to replace that simple JavaScript with jQuery. All right. Filtering, grabbing just the first element. There we go. So we've got a dot first in there. As you'd probably guess, we could do the last, or we had a dot last. We could do an index, so we select the one that we want. Notice it's equal to 1. As computers, we start counting with 0. Some of these things in jQuery actually start counting with the number 1 instead of the number 0. It's a little confusing. jQuery Ajax, load content. And what it's doing is it's going out to another file that has that information, and it's loading that contact in that way. Okay, same kind of thing. All right, finally, no conflict mode, as it says, putting jQuery into no conflict mode. The reason that that can be important, just so you know, the reason that that can be important is if you are combining jQuery with other JavaScript libraries, they also use the $sign. So by putting you into a no conflict mode, what you're saying is, hey, if some other library uses the $sign and I'm in no conflict mode, make sure my jQuery runs just fine. All right? Don't think there's anything more in here. All right, that should do it. So that should do it for this particular presentation. When I come back, I'm going to very quickly go over the W3 Schools jQuery selectors tutorial.